Hello and welcome to What's With Healthcare podcast today. We are three nurses who have a combined 90-year history of working and observing healthcare in action. We come together for every podcast and talk about a topic related to the healthcare system from our different perspectives we've had from working and experiencing it. We're here to share this knowledge and our perspectives, and we want to hear from everyone out there who's listening in. We want you to help us to learn more and grow more and talk and share. That's why we're coming to you every week. We acknowledge and pay respects to the lands and the waterways of the traditional Aboriginal families from where we're podcasting from. So those lands are the Yugara, Turrbal and Darumbal peoples, and always was and always will be Aboriginal lands.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to feel lighter and brighter with nutrition. Celeste is going to explain a few things. She's going to talk about what's the broad consensus of what is a healthy diet. She's also going to explain the dangers of ultra-processed food. She's going to talk about the relationship between our emotions and food and how we can become aware of how food affects us. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video.
So nutrition, it's a really big subject, this one. And you know, there's so many different perspectives, and what suits one individual doesn't suit everybody. So, you know, we have to do what's right for our body, for our cultural beliefs, and for our, you know, our perspective of the world. We might have really strong beliefs about the environment and how our impact on the earth is affected by what we choose to eat. So food's also one of life's simple pleasures, and we use it to celebrate. So, you know, there's religious festivals, there's fasting and feasting. So we have to be flexible in how we approach it so that we can still follow the principles that make us feel well and walk the line to enjoy life and enjoy the things that we share with our family and our community. So the other thing about food, you know, is on the other side, what we eat affects our bodies just like the environment that we live in. And there's a growing body of evidence in epigenetics, if I can spit it out, and that's the expression of our genes. So, for example, there's been a study done in Canada in recent years where they looked at the incidence of gestational diabetes, so diabetes in pregnancy, and how that related to the children that were born from those pregnancies. And they followed them over 20 years. And the incidence of the child developing diabetes by the age of 22 was double what it was for the group from mothers who didn't have gestational diabetes, which is significant. So, you know, the choices that we make ourselves impact the next generation. So there is an element of responsibility there for us to really think about the choices that we make. So every day we're bombarded by so many different choices and so many different recommendations about what's the best diet to follow to get a certain outcome. So we're fixed on an outcome of losing weight, of feeling good, but it's usually about reaching some goal that's in the short term. So there's also like, you know, people who want to subscribe to a particular way of eating to look after the planet. So we've got vegan, paleo, there's 5 and 2, there's just so many different options out there, even carnivore. And they all suit those individuals that recommend them, but they're not the be all and end all for everybody. So the broad consensus is that, and the WHO, the World Health Organization, supports this, that if we eat a wide variety of whole foods and a good amount of fresh fruit and vegetables and moderate protein, so fish, meat, lentils, whatever, and we minimize the trans fats in our diet. So that's predominantly the manufactured trans fats, which are oils that have been hydrogenated. It's processed so that they become a hard fat, and that's easier to use in a lot of manufactured foods like biscuits and cakes and stuff. So minimising those will give us a good level of health and well-being. So what is a whole food? So to know that, it's basically, the rule of thumb is, if it looks like it was recently alive, it's a whole food. So if it was on the hoof walking around the paddock, or it was growing in the field, you can see that it's recently been growing, then that's a whole food. Another way to know is when you go to the supermarket, whole foods, they predominantly are around the perimeter of the store. So you come in through the fruit and veggies, there's the deli, there's the meat and poultry section, the dairy, eggs, it's all sort of around the outside. Even pulses, which are another good source of protein, and they've just been lightly processed so that they can be packaged, and they'll be towards the outside of the store as well. And the final indicator is if you find yourself reading a box to see what the list of ingredients is, there's a red flag that it's been processed to some extent, because whole foods don't need a list of ingredients. But kudos for checking the labels, because it's only by checking labels that we get to know what's in our foods and, what we're putting in our mouths. So on the other extreme, we've got ultra-processed foods. And these have resulted from multiple stages of processing to create that bliss point in taste. So they're high in salt, sugar, and fat, and they just give us such a dopamine hit that we just think, wow, I want another one. And you find yourself, any of those foods that you find you can't eat enough of, or you can just eat when you're not even hungry, they're usually in that category. And they've been manufactured and designed for that purpose.
Yeah. Sorry, Celeste, I think that's a really good point to highlight to people who may be listening today, is that there is a lot of research that goes into making these foods, because big companies, like we're talking big business, make a lot of money about making this food for us to eat and keep going back and buying more of. So, McDonald's being an example of someone who makes a lot of money thinking about how to make our dopamine, energized to sort of want to sit and eat more. So really good to think on that too, is my thought.
Yep. Yeah, that's right, Sue. And, the other thing about getting that dopamine hit is that it kind of floods our decision-making part of our brain, and we just become like zombies. Like, we can't think rationally. Our willpower is hijacked, and we're like a moth to the flame. We just, I've got to have it. And we can become habituated in a way to processed food. Just like we can to narcotic medication, to any kind of drugs. You're like chasing the dragon to get another.
Yeah. It's a full-on addictive process. And I think it's really important for people to realize that sometimes their addictions to things, they've subliminally given away their power, not realizing how much background research has gone into taking that away from them.
Yes, that's so true. And when you lose your rational thinking, it's really highly addictive food, and it's so hard to manage that, because addictions of any kind, there's more going on in the background to how we've become addicted to a substance. It's helping us in some way. So there's a lady in the States, her name's Dr. Joan Ifland, and she's done a lot of work in addictive nutrition. She did a PhD studies in it, and it's something that has been really close to her heart. She's done a lot of work in this area. And I did a couple of trainings with her, and she really opened my eyes to how much of a battle it is for people to manage their relationship with food and to have a healthy relationship with food. So she's actually got a quiz, and I'll pop it in the comments after the show, but it's an addiction self-quiz. So you can test yourself if you feel like, you don't have any power. You can get past KFC and McDonald's and Big Rooster, but by the time you get home and the KFC ad comes on, you're dialing Uber Eats, because your willpower's finite and that's it. You got to have a hit. Well, she's great for that. So there's a lot of work going on there, and it's a hard thing to tackle on your own. So we know what whole foods are that are good for us, and we know what the ultra processed stuff that's not so very good for us and hard to manage. How do we get awareness about knowing the difference, knowing what we're putting in our mouths and sticking to a plan? So eating mindfully is the first step. To have awareness, if you don't, like we always say, if you don't have awareness, you can't change something. So it's that tuning in. So it doesn't mean that you have to go and sit out under a tree with your legs crossed and eat your lunch. It's just, that's very beneficial. It's about tuning in, using all your senses and removing distractions. So you can't eat mindfully if you're walking down the street with a burger in your hand, or you're sitting at your desk eating your sandwich, or you're scrolling on your phone or watching TV. It means you sit down without distractions and really focus on the food, the meal that's in front of you, and use all your senses. What does it feel like in your mouth? What does it smell like, taste like?
Yeah.
And get the full experience and really enjoy it. If it's a treat, we'll really savor it. And then afterwards, it's tuning in and noticing how you feel afterwards. Like, do you find that you feel energized, or do you feel a bit, or do you feel like you're bouncing off the walls for half an hour and then you're asleep on your desk for the next hour, like, you know, feeling really doughy? That's the thing as well. And often some foods can do that. Yes.
So I have a question for you. So you that know about, mindful eating, but you work in an emergency apartment. How do you do that in an emergency apartment? And what's your experience basically?
Yeah. So for me, it's about making sure that I take my breaks. And that's, I notice that our team is really supportive like that, about making sure we take breaks. So we look after the person next to us in the next lot of cubes. We work together, like, how you going? Are you right to go for your break now? And we sort of try and schedule it in the first opportunity, because you just never know what's coming. But I mean, the rule of thumb is if no one's going to die in the next 10 minutes, go and have your break, because you've got to have it. Like, we can't keep going on empty. So it's a matter of, like I was saying, getting out of that environment. Sometimes it's good to go outside if you can get a bit of fresh air, and that's really sort of grounds you as well. But yeah, it is important to take those breaks away from work.
Yeah, because also there is sometimes in those spaces where, people come to work on an early shift and they have missed their brekkie.
Yeah.
And when you missed your breakfast, that can cascade and set you up for a whole world of hurt.
Yes.
To be able to emotionally balance yourself to deal with patients' needs until you get to morning tea time.
Absolutely. And it really does affect your mood and your ability to regulate your emotions. So I wasn't going to talk too much about my own experience, except to say that even when I used to have, rolled oats for breakfast, even, not having any protein much in my breakfast, I guess, made, like, by 10:30, if I didn't get my coffee break by 10:30, I was like hangry. Like, it's like, and I really had to, I never really snapped at anyone, but it took mental energy to control that feeling, knowing that, oh man, I really need my coffee break, and once I was able to get onto more, like less carbohydrate laden foods, that I am able to sustain my energy. I don't have that lability in my, emotions and mood, and it's just life's easier. So when we sit down and pay attention to what we're eating, we can take time to tune into ourselves, and we become aware then of what we're choosing, and we can choose consciously. So if we've had, a can of Coke and we bounced off the walls, and then we were feeling sleepy after half an hour, well, that's good to notice it. And like, how can you change? What's the change you can make so that you can feel better about it? So here's another example. When you catch yourself swinging off the fridge door, as I'm sure a lot of people find themselves from time to time, and you're perusing the contents, what's going through your mind? Emotional eating is a thing. So we do it to satisfy an unmet need. So when you catch yourself, think, what am I needing? What am I looking for? And if I think about, when I reflect on the times I've caught myself doing it, it's like I'm procrastinating. I'm putting off an uncomfortable task that I don't really want to do. So I'm avoiding discomfort.
Or also you're bored. Sometimes I'm bored when I'm doing that.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone else relates to the celebration thing, like, oh yeah, I finally stopped putting that thing off and I did it. Yay, I'm going to celebrate now. What's tasty in the fridge? So it's tuning into what need are we looking to fulfill? And is there another way we can tweak our behavior to meet that need in another way that's still healthy?
Can I jump in? I jump in and talk about the Friday afternoon habit I used to have of having a wine on Friday afternoon?
Yeah, sure.
So that was like one of those habits. It was just like, cool, it's Friday afternoon. We can go sit and we can have a wine, and because we're going to reflect on the week. No, I was just using the niceness of reflecting on the week as an example to sit and drink wine. So yes, I really had to shift that habit because it's wine, addictive habit right there. So yeah, I had to shift that. And instead of coming home on a Friday afternoon and having a wine, we started going for a walk.
Right. Okay.
So I had to shift, do the subject object shift because I was getting in my own way.
Yes, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because I know myself that the one wine turns into two wines, and but you still
a bottle of wine. Let's be honest. I'll call myself out. It turns into a bottle of wine. Easy done.
Yeah, it's a trap. So how do we deal with this? So we know what the emotions are that are going on, what the need is that we're looking to fulfill. So it's not about beating ourselves up and blaming ourselves, like no judgment. It's just be kind. You've noticed it. Hurrah. Like that's a great achievement. Now own it, because it is our own behavior. And what's the next thing we can do that's going to change that we want little steps that we can take to make a difference. So let's say you've researched the options, what's whole food and what's processed foods, and you've noticed that you've got a 6 Coke can a day habit at work. And you really look forward to it. They punctuate the day for you. When you get to that 6th can, it's like, woohoo, I'm on the downward slide to the end of the day. But you really want to change it because you've noticed how you feel after you have, half an hour after you have each can. So what's one thing? Maybe it's that you cut back to 5 cans on 3 days of the week and still have your 6 on the other 2 so you can get through. Or maybe you don't mind the taste of no sugar Coke, so you might want to flip to that. Or maybe there's something in the middle there, but there's always a little step that you can take, and it should feel like it's not like a real arduous task to have a go. It should feel like it's just a little bit of a stretch to get there. And then when you get to the end of the week and you've achieved that, then you can change the goal for the next week and so on until you get to your ultimate goal. And just celebrate every little step and noticing what you learn along the way, because we learn more about ourselves if we take time to notice. So to recap, there's lots of dietary advice and information out there, and it can seem conflicting. But the general consensus we know is that whole foods and good amount of variety of our fruit and veggies and getting our protein intake and no trans fats is going to get us on the right track. We know that if we can shop on the outside of the supermarket, that we're well on the way to making those healthy choices. So just have a little think about where you do your shopping mostly. Where do you find yourself when you're at Coles or Woolies or wherever? And that might give you some clues. And we've also worked out about, the effects of highly processed foods and how we can become mindful and aware of how we can make some changes, how we can know what's happening in our minds and our emotions, and how we can make some healthier choices. And so in that way, we can sustain that feeling of lightness and brightness rather than not feel good in the moment and then not feel so good in an hour or a day or a week's time. So we're all individual, and I encourage everyone to do your own research and notice how foods make you feel. Experiment with different foods and see what makes you feel lighter and brighter in a sustained way. And notice, if it's stress and emotions that are causing you to choose the foods that don't help you, well, we've got some previous episodes that link into the effects of stress on our bodies and compassion fatigue, and those kind of things can all impact the choices that we make in what we eat. So I encourage you to check those out. If you'd like some help with building new habits and creating the change that you'd really like for yourself, well, we would love to work with you. So you can contact either one of us or via the links below, and it'd be great to chat through some options. Thanks.
If you relate to any of the things that Celeste has been talking about, please let us know in the comment section below. And if you like the video, give it a like and share with your family, friends, or anyone that you feel like this content is going to be of help. And remember, of course, to subscribe.